Hello everyone, welcome back to my B&B Today spoiler channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. The morning sun hadn't fully burned off the marine layer over Los Angeles when Katie Logan Spencer found her son in the kitchen, looking like a man who hadn't slept, or worse, like a man who'd slept just fine with someone he shouldn't have. You told her you miss Electra, Katie said. It wasn't a question. Will Spencer set down his coffee mug a little too hard. He'd known this conversation was coming from the moment the words left his mouth in Melissa Dillon's arms. His mother had a way of finding out things before he'd even fully processed them himself. Mom, it's complicated. It's not complicated, Will, it's cruel. You're lying in bed with Electra's best friend and telling her you miss the woman she betrayed. Do you hear how that sounds? Will's jaw tightened. He wasn't proud of it, exactly, but he also wasn't ready to accept that he'd done something wrong. Electra ended things. She made it very clear we were done, completely, permanently done. What am I supposed to do? Sit alone in an empty apartment and mourn a relationship that she's the one who killed? You're supposed to have some self-respect. And some respect for Dillon, too. If you're going to be with her, or don't be with her at all, if your heart's still somewhere else. Dillon's been there for me, Will said, softer now. She's not asking me to pretend I don't feel things. She's just there, comforting me. Is that a crime? Kitty studied her son for a long moment, seeing the stubbornness that ran through the Logan and Spencer bloodlines alike. She didn't have an answer that would satisfy him this morning. But she had a feeling that somewhere across town, someone else was about to make the situation a great deal more complicated. Friendship terminated. Electra Forrester didn't storm into the office. She never needed to storm anywhere. She simply arrived, and rooms tended to rearrange themselves around her. But there was a fire in her eyes today that made even the interns look up from their desks. Melissa Dillon was waiting by the design table, arms crossed, already braced for the confrontation she knew was coming. The two of them had been inseparable once, the kind of friendship built on borrowed clothes and late-night secrets. That was over now. We need to talk about Will, Electra said, closing the distance between them. There's nothing to talk about. Dillon lifted her chin. You dumped him. You told him, in no uncertain terms, that you two were finished. I didn't take anything from you, Electra. You threw it away. I threw away a relationship. I didn't hand you a hunting license. Electra's voice was low, controlled, and somehow more menacing for it. You've been circling him for weeks, comforting him, being there. Do you think I don't see what you're doing? Dillon didn't back down. Maybe I'm just being a friend to someone who's hurting. Something you clearly don't understand. That was the wrong thing to say. Electra took a step closer, and when she spoke again, every syllable landed like a verdict. I'm Electra Forrester. If I want it, you're gone. She let that settle in the air between them. Keep pursuing Will and see how long you last in this building. Dillon's composure cracked just slightly. You don't have that kind of power. Steffy and Ridge decide who works here. Not you. Steffy and Ridge, listen to me, Electra shot back. And right now, my patience for you is running very, very thin. The two women stood there, the friendship between them not just fractured but incinerated, while around them the business of Forrester Creations carried on, oblivious to the fact that its owner, several floors up, was falling apart in an entirely different way. The woman who wanted to be free, Steffy Forrester Finnegan, hadn't meant to end up at Carter Walton's door with a bottle of wine already half finished in her system. She'd meant to go home. She'd meant to sit alone in the quiet and figure out how her marriage, her supposedly unbreakable, once-in-a-lifetime marriage, had ended up in ruins. But home felt like a stage set for a life that no longer existed, and she couldn't stand to be in it. Carter opened the door and took one look at her and understood immediately. He didn't ask questions. He just stepped aside and let her in because he wasn't exactly in fighting shape himself. Daphne Rose had walked out of his life, and he'd spent the better part of the evening trying to drown the sound of the door closing behind her. You look like I feel, Steffy said, dropping onto his couch like her legs had simply stopped negotiating with her. That bad. Worse, she laughed, but it wasn't really a laugh, more like something breaking loose. You know what I wanted? My whole life, all I wanted was to be free of her. Sheila, free of the fear, free of the way she's always circling, always finding some new way to tear my family apart. I thought if I could just get far enough away from her, I could have something normal. Something safe. Carter poured them both another glass, more out of habit than hospitality. And now my marriage is in pieces, and I don't even know if it's because of her or because of everything else, or because Finn and I just weren't as strong as I thought we were. I don't know anymore, Carter. I really don't. She pressed the heel of her hand against her eyes. I'm so tired of fighting for a life that keeps getting taken from me. Carter sat down beside her, close enough that the space between them had nearly disappeared. I get it, he said quietly. I really do. Daphne left because she couldn't trust that I'd chosen her, chosen us, over everything else pulling at me. And maybe she was right not to trust it. I don't know anymore either. They sat in that admission together to people who had each, in their own way, lost the thing they'd built their hope around. The wine kept flowing. The night kept deepening. And whatever careful boundaries had existed between them began, quietly and unmistakably, to dissolve. Enough, Steffi said suddenly, almost to herself. I'm done being the woman everyone else's choices happen to. Sheila doesn't get my whole life. She doesn't get to win. Carter looked at her, really looked at her, and in his eyes she saw something that wasn't pity. It was recognition. To people who understood exactly how it felt to be left holding the wreckage of a life they hadn't chosen to destroy. You deserve better than what's happened to you, he murmured. So do you. Whatever came next. Neither of them stopped it. A man racing the clock somewhere over the Pacific. John Finnegan sat rigid in his airplane seat, willing the plane to move faster than physics allowed. He'd left everything behind the moment he'd made his decision, get to Steffi no matter what it took. No matter how far he had to fly or how fast he had to move once his feet hit the ground. He kept replaying the last conversation in his head. The way Steffi's voice had sounded so hollow, so finished. She thought their marriage was over. She thought there was nothing left to salvage after everything Sheila had put them through. But Finn refused to believe that, refused to accept that after everything they'd survived together. This was where it ended, in silence and distance and unanswered calls. I have to get to her before it's too late, he thought, watching the clouds crawl past the window at what felt like a crawl. Before she does something she can't take back. Before she convinces herself that we're really finished. He had no way of knowing, 30,000 feet in the air, that too late wasn't a future he needed to race against. It might already be the present, while he counted down the minutes to landing, calculating how fast he could get from LAX to wherever Steffi might be. The woman he was flying home to save was in Carter Walton's apartment, in Carter Walton's arms. Crossing a line that would change everything the moment Finn walked back through the door. Would the week left behind be the time the dust settled on this particular chapter of chaos? Nearly every relationship at the center of it had been tested past its breaking point. Katie had confronted her son and gotten nothing but justification in return. Will remained convinced he'd done nothing wrong. Even as his mother's disapproval hung over him like a warning, he wasn't ready to hear. Electra and Dylan's friendship was finished, not fractured, not strained, but over, replaced by a rivalry with real stakes. Electra had made a threat she fully intended to keep, and Dylan now had to decide whether Will was worth risking her job at Forrester Creations. And then there was Steffi. A woman who had spent so long trying to outrun Sheila Carter's chaos that she'd walked straight into chaos of her own making. Whatever happened between her and Carter in that apartment, it wouldn't stay contained to one night, not in a world where everyone eventually finds out everything. And not with Finn now back on solid ground, walking through the door of a home that might no longer be the one he left. He'd come home with one goal. Reach Steffi before it was too late. The question hanging over all of them now was whether too late had already come and gone, and whether any of them were ready for what came next. To be continued on The Bold and the Beautiful.